So I'd like to introduce Jen Leese, and Jen has her own company, and she is very good with recipes and nutrition. And I am just going to hand this right over to Jen. Thanks, Jen.
Great. Thanks, Ellen. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to go right ahead and share my screen, and then I will talk about what we are learning about today. All right, let's get the slideshow going. Okay. So today's program, or this evening's program, since it's already late in the day, is all about seasonal food. So we're going to talk about how we can use seasonal foods to support our health and beyond that. And I will dive into our learning objectives. So we're going to talk about what it actually means to eat seasonally. We'll identify the top 5 benefits of eating seasonally and how this can help support your health goals. We'll learn about how you can include more seasonal foods into your diet. So I'll give you some, after we've talked about seasonal foods and the benefits of them, I'll give you some tips on how you can actually include more of them in your regular eating habits. And then I'm going to do a demonstration of a simple recipe that highlights seasonal ingredients for summer. And you will have access to this recipe. At the end of the program, I'll put up a slide with my contact information. So you can either email me directly and I'll send you the recipe, or the recipe will get posted to the library's website after the program. So you'll be able to access it there as well. So a brief introduction of myself before we get started here. My name is Jen. I'm a registered dietitian and certified dietitian nutritionist. I'm also trained in health supportive culinary arts. So I have a culinary degree around plant-based cooking and just looking at cooking as a tool for supporting our health in a variety of ways. So that's really where my passion lies, in educating about nutrition, doing that from the kitchen, right? So any sort of information you learn about nutrition is great, but how do we apply that into our life, right? How do we apply that into real life? And one way that we can do that, of course, is by preparing the food, right? I have experience in a few different avenues of nutrition. So I've worked in a clinical setting, a community nutrition setting, working for nonprofit, and in corporate wellness as well. And then in 2019, went into business for myself. So that's where Chef Girl Nutrition comes in. So in my business, I offer personalized one-on-one nutrition counseling for either helping to manage a chronic illness, a chronic disease through nutrition therapy, and also to help with more general wellness and sort of moving into a more mindful eating approach and moving away from dieting, right? Moving away from all the fad diets. I offer individual and group cooking classes, workshops like we're doing this evening, and I also do some recipe development. And just to give you a little bit of a background on the mission of my business, because it kind of tells you a little bit more about my philosophy around nutrition and how that, ties into the conversation that we'll have today. So I'm really, my main goal is to just simplify all of that nutrition science that's out there, all of the nutrition, information that you can find on the internet. A lot of it's misinformation. So just really helping you feel confident in your food choices, again, without relying on all those fads and trends. And the culinary comes in where I'm really passionate about erasing the stigma that healthy food is bland and boring, right? Sometimes we think that if we're going to eat healthy, it means that you have to sacrifice eating all the foods that you love. And that's just not the case, right? One, there is a happy balance to strike between eating healthy, nutritious foods and maybe less nutritious foods. But also eating healthy foods does not have to be bland and boring, and it shouldn't be. So I'm always, like I said, loving to educate about nutrition in the kitchen, because if you can learn how to make healthy food taste delicious, be satisfying, right, and not have to spend hours in the kitchen doing it, then your healthy eating habits are going to be a lot more sustainable. So diving into today's topic, and I just want to say, if you have any questions at any point, just drop them in the chat. I'll keep my eye on the chat, and then at the end, you know, if I don't get to any questions, if there's any kind of outstanding at the end, I will spend some time answering them. So what does seasonal really mean, right? What does seasonal food mean? You know, it's pretty obvious the word seasonal, right, has something to do with food that's growing in the different seasons. But what really does that mean, and why does it have any sort of impact on the health benefit of foods that we are eating? So seasonal foods, we're really talking about produce here. So we're really focusing on fruits and vegetables in this conversation. So it's produce that is purchased and consumed around the same time that it's harvested, right? So it's grown in its natural season, and we are buying it and eating it all around that same time, right? So there's no lag time, there's no long travel periods. It's just produce that is grown in its natural way. It makes it to the marketplace and makes it to us for consumption all around that same, you know, all within just a matter of days, right? It's grown in its most natural environment. So it ripens naturally, so it doesn't require the use of extensive chemicals or genetic modification, right? There's lots of talk now about GMOs. So it's just produce that is grown in its most natural way. It's grown in its most natural climate, right? And it's able to ripen naturally and develop all of the nutrients and flavor that it naturally has. So what does that mean for us? Why is that beneficial for us? For one thing, it's going to taste better. So I have an image here of strawberries. And if you've ever maybe experienced eating a strawberry that looks like the one on the right, that is almost, you know, barely any color, looks very dull in color. When you bite into that thing, it has a very bland flavor. It's not sweet like you expect a strawberry to be. It's not juicy like you expect a strawberry to be. But when you get one that's in season, more like this one on the left, it's bursting with flavor, right? It's juicy, and it just tastes like candy almost, right? Like it's super sweet. We don't need to do anything to make it taste any better. It's perfect as it is. So that's a main, a main difference between eating produce that is seasonal versus grown out of season. It's gonna taste better. So again, because it's ripening naturally, it's developing its natural flavor in the right amount of time, right? It's going through the proper growth period that it needs to develop all of its flavors. It has a deeper color, and that deeper color is a good indication of it having more flavor. Another example that I love to use is tomatoes. If you have ever cut into a mealy tomato, right? You know what that is. Like the texture is off. It has no flavor, versus biting into like cherry tomatoes in the summer, right? Where they're super sweet. And again, like the juices are coming out. They're just so much more delicious. And that just makes it more satisfying, right? So I always give this tip, right? If you've had a bad experience with a particular fruit or veggie, consider trying it again when it's in season, and you may change your mind, right? And of course, there are just some fruits and veggies that you might just not like, right? We all have different food preferences. But sometimes, take the tomato, for example. If you're like, ugh, I really don't like tomatoes, they're like really mealy, and I don't know what all the hype is about. Maybe you had a bad tomato, right? Maybe you had a tomato in the middle of December, when its prime season is in the summer. So this is just kind of a silly tip, but with a bigger message to say that if fruits and veggies don't taste good to you, then of course you're not going to want to eat them, right? And so choosing ones that are in season is a really good way to choose ones that are actually going to taste good and that you're going to want to keep eating. They also have more nutrients. So again, because it's ripening naturally, it's able to go through the process of developing all of the essential nutrients that it contains, all of those good vitamins and minerals that we know we need from fruits and vegetables, right? The antioxidants that we get from fruits and veggies, all of these health properties, right? The reason why we are told to eat more fruits and vegetables is because they contain these essential vitamins and minerals, fiber, right? All of these things that we need. And so if you're going to eat more fruits and vegetables, may as well get the most out of them, right? And get the most nutrients out of them. So produce that is grown seasonally is going to have the most nutrients. If it's grown, it's grown the way it's supposed to grow. It's picked right at its peak, right at its best ripeness level. And then again, because it's getting from that it's getting picked, getting packaged, getting delivered to the store, and you're buying it all within a matter of a couple of days, it's, you're consuming it still while it's at that peak ripeness, right? It's at that peak flavor, peak nutrient value. And that deeper color that can signify more flavor also is an indication that there's more nutrients in it. So we have different kinds of nutrients called phytonutrients that are in fruits and vegetables. And those nutrients are part of what give fruits and vegetables their color. So like beta carotene is a very popular one that you've probably heard before. Beta carotene gives fruits and vegetables with a yellow-orange hue their color. And so if they have a deeper color, it means that there's more beta carotene in there. Same thing with like tomatoes or strawberries, watermelon that have lycopene that gives it that bright red, reddish pink color. Again, if it has that deeper color, there's more of that lycopene in there. So that deeper color means that there's more nutrients in there as well. And so this is a really great way to get a variety of nutrients in your diet, right? So I'm always talking about getting variety in. One, because there's no one food, right? There's no one food in the world that contains all of the essential nutrients that we need. So we have to eat a variety of different foods to get all of the nutrients in that we need. So that's one piece of the puzzle, right? And then also getting more variety in your diet helps decrease food boredom, right? So even if you're someone who really is, a creature of habit and you like to eat the same things, week after week, and you don't feel like you have to switch it up too much, over time, we can still get a little fatigued from the same food choices. And so having more variety in your usual eating habits can help prevent that food boredom. And again, helping to create sustainable, healthy eating habits. So you can switch up your produce haul and choose fruits and veggies that are in season. So it's a really great way to choose new to you fruits and veggies. So you can consider setting a goal for yourself, like I will purchase one new fruit or vegetable each week, right? So maybe it's not new to you, but it's just one that you don't typically buy. And that can be a good way to just introduce one different fruit or vegetable every week into your shopping cart and incorporate that into your meals for the week. The third benefit is better value, right? So going back to those strawberries, right? Because strawberries are in season now, and strawberries are actually the star of our recipe today. So we'll stay with strawberries as our example. If you are shopping for strawberries in the middle of the winter, you might see a whole carton of strawberries, $5, $6. If you're buying organic, $7, $8. Versus if you go buy strawberries now, you're going to see them on sale. I got a big 2-pound package the other day for $3. And I've been seeing organic ones on sale as well. So you'll start to see sales of produce that's grown in season, right? Because if it's grown naturally, that also means that it's naturally abundant. It's just growing, right? It's the natural growing season for that fruit or vegetable. And so there's less need for a markup cost because they're able to keep up with the market demand naturally. So they're able to put those fruits and vegetables on sale. And so a tip that I always give of, well, how do I know what's in season? How do I know, you're telling me to switch it up and buy something new at the store? Look for things that are on sale. Look in the produce aisle, look for what's on sale. That's usually a really good indicator that it's in season. The fourth benefit is that it supports the environment and in turn supports you. So I touched on this a little bit at the very beginning here, but there's less chemical and pesticide use on produce that is grown in season. One, because oftentimes, think of the most popular fruits and veggies in our country, right? Like think about, apples and even berries, right? You see berries in the supermarket year round, but their peak season is now in the summer. So when you're seeing berries in the store in December, they are likely not grown in a natural process, or they're being imported from somewhere, from another country. We import a lot of our produce from South America, from Mexico. So if farmers need to, if the markets need to keep up with the demand for the most popular fruits and vegetables, then farmers often have to resort to using different kinds of chemicals to help those plants grow and ripen unnaturally, to grow and ripen in a way that's not their most natural ripening process. This is getting a little bit better. There's a lot of new ways of growing food. There's more greenhouses, there's hydroponic gardens, where you're able to grow things out of season without relying on chemicals. But some of the most popular fruits and vegetables that you see year round, when they're not in season, they're either being imported or there's some sort of chemical use on them to help them grow in a more unnatural way. So speaking about travel, right? If we're importing produce, and just as a side note, some produce is imported because we just don't have the sort of climate for growth of those fruits and vegetables in the US, right? So sometimes there are certain fruits and veggies that really only grow in tropical climates that we just don't have in this country, really. But that's just kind of a side note. Think about other, like I said, berries, any sort of produce that is traveling, being imported from another country. That's a long travel time. So one, of course, that's impacting the environment, right? Just the, in terms of like the gases from travel. But for you, right, it is the integrity of the produce is being compromised in that traveling period, right? So think that they are picking those berries on this day, and then they're packing them up to put them into, onto a plane, onto a truck, however they're being transported. It's taking however many days to be transported to then get put out into your market for you to then purchase and then consume. So there's a lot more time lapse, right, between the time that produce is picked to the time that you're actually consuming it. And so that's going to impact it can impact the texture, the nutrient value. It can impact a lot of different, things about the produce. And another thing is that pesticides are used more to help preserve those foods in the traveling process, right? To keep them fresh, because if they're traveling over that many days, how is it fresh when it arrives at your store, right? So just something to kind of think about. A lot of times this just isn't something that we really think about too often. We just buy the produce that we like, right? But if this is something that is important to you about, chemical and pesticide use on your produce, this is definitely something to, kind of start thinking about a little bit. I always say that it starts with just becoming aware, right? And being a more aware consumer. and then making your own personal decisions once you have the information. And so foods that are seasonal and grown locally offer the most benefit, right? So there might be a food that is in season, right? Let's just keep using berries as an example. Berries are grown in the summer, but that doesn't mean that the climate of your local area is good for growing berries, right? So berries can be in season, but if you live on the East Coast, they might be coming from California, just throwing that out there. So it does, just because something's in season doesn't necessarily mean that it was grown locally. But if something is grown locally, that means that it is in season, because that's why it's able to grow locally in that region. So if you can find foods that are both seasonal and grown locally, you're going to get the most benefit of all the things that we've been talking about. So the best way to do that is to go to local farmers markets and explore those and see what's available. And to just research what's grown seasonally in your geographic location. It's a quick Google search to find that out. And the fifth benefit, that's maybe a little bit more like, some people might say a little woo-woo, is that you are in balance with nature. And so what that really means is that you're truly eating the way that nature intended, right? You're eating with the natural rhythm of nature, and that helps our bodies to function more to their natural rhythm. It helps your body feel more balanced. So it's no coincidence that we crave warm, comforting meals in the winter and chilled, fresh dishes for summer, right? Aside from the fact that, like, if it's hot out, you don't want to eat soup, you want to eat something chilled. It also is your body's way of letting you know what it needs. So your body might be craving those chilled, fresh dishes in the summer, not just because your body is hot, but because it needs those nutrients. So it might really need the nutrients from fresh fruits and vegetables in the summer. And so it, is kind of craving that. And so it's just something to sort of pay attention to, how your cravings might change season to season, and look at it from that perspective. It really is, again, it's just eating the way that nature intended. And that can help you feel more balanced overall. So how can we eat more seasonal foods, right? So now we know that they're good, right? They have a lot of benefit. How can we include more of them into our regular eating habits? So one tip is to meal plan. Meal planning, I have a whole other workshop on meal planning. I'm not sure if any of you were there for that, but meal planning is really just a tool. It's a tool to help you achieve different goals that meal planning can help you achieve, right? And one of those things is with your healthy eating goals. And so you might have a particular goal around eating more fruits and veggies. And like I said, can help you to get more variety in your diet. And so when you're meal planning, you can make sure that in your plan, you're including strawberries on your meal plan that week. You're including zucchini as one of your vegetables for that week. You're making sure that you're including a more seasonal ingredient into your meal plan for that week. And not that you're just, right, because if you're just picking it when you're in the store because you notice that it's on sale, or whatever it is, if you're just grabbing it in the moment at the store, then you don't really have a plan for how you're going to use it. And so that's, a higher chance that it's going to come home with you and never make its way into a dish, right? So having the meal plan tells you, okay, I'm including this in the plan, and this is how I am including it. This is how I'm cooking it. This is the dish that it's going to be a part of. And then you have a plan for actually using it. And so, like I mentioned, exploring your grocery produce aisles, look for sales, and again, trying to plan to include something, sort of new to you. visiting local farmers markets if they're accessible to you, and not just looking at what's available at the farmers market, but actually chatting with the farmers. They love it. They love to talk about what they're growing. They love to talk to you about farming. So you strike up a conversation there. Most farmers are very friendly. You strike up a conversation with them and learn about how they grow their produce. How do they grow their fruits and vegetables? What kind of methods do they use? And not only that, but they can also give you ideas for how to use them. So usually the farmers are very knowledgeable about how to cook with the fruits and vegetables that they grow, right? Different ways to enjoy them. And so that can give you an idea of what to actually do with it. So again, you're not just at the market and being like, oh, this is a cool looking squash, I'm going to buy this. But then you bring it home and you're like, I have no idea how to use this, right? So it's only going to be beneficial if you can actually incorporate it into dishes for the week. So, of course, you can use the internet and research recipes for it. Ask the farmer, what is this called? And then go home and do a little Google search and find some recipes for that item. Or like I said, you can ask farmers for ideas as well. Another great thing is community supported agriculture programs. So these are otherwise known as a CSA. So these are really great community programs where you pay like an upfront fee, and that's helping to support the farmers. And then every week you're going to a location in your neighborhood where you're picking up a bag, a box, whatever it is, of different produce. And so you sometimes, depending on the CSA, sometimes you don't know what's going to be in your box. Sometimes you'll get notified what's in the box that week, but it'll just be an assortment of different seasonal items. So it's almost like just bringing the farmer's market to you instead of you going. But it's a really, if you feel, if you really support local agriculture and farmers and things, this is a great way to show support to farmers. And you can just research CSA in my area. They're really like popping up all over the place now. So on that note, what's in season for summer? I touched on berries and tomatoes, but what else? So this is everything that, or not everything, but some of the most common popular foods that are in season for summer. So we have berries and cherries, tomatoes, stone fruit, so apricots, peaches, nectarines, plums, those kinds of stone fruits, zucchini and summer squash, different kinds of melons, watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, mangoes, corn, cucumbers, and some greens and fresh herbs. So like Swiss chard comes into season in the summer. So that can be a nice time to, to try, like that's a great example of trying a different type of green, right? Maybe you always make your salads with romaine lettuce, right? So maybe you can try adding some Swiss chard to your salad, right? Try some different mixed greens. That's a great example of how you can get a little bit of variety into your diet. So at this point, are there any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but please don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions. Because coming up next, we are moving into our demo. So our demo for this evening, I'm just checking the time, we're good. The demo for this evening is a strawberry Faro salad. So this, I really love to showcase different fruits and vegetables in different ways, right? Maybe less typical ways. And so something like berries, we often think about in a sweet way, right? In like a desserty kind of way. But berries work beautifully paired with different types of savory ingredients. And so this can just be a great way for, introducing some less typical ways to use fruits and vegetables can give you more ideas for how to enjoy them, right? And how to get more of them into your diet, because most adults don't eat enough fruits and definitely don't eat enough vegetables. So I'm always talking about different, less typical ways to enjoy them, to help you get those servings in and make sure that you're getting all the vitamins and minerals that you need. So the strawberry farro salad is going to highlight that. So we're using strawberries, of course, that are peak season right now in June. We have some arugula in here. We have fresh basil and fresh mint. We're using lemon juice and lemon zest. So lots of bright, summery flavors. This is a delicious, summer salad to have at like a cookout or a barbecue, to, just have on hand for a nice chilled lunch, because it's delicious at room temperature or chilled straight from the fridge. So I'm going to demo the recipe. And like I said, so my email is down here, jennifer@chefgirlnutrition.com. You can email me directly and I will send you the recipe. That's the best way to get in contact with me. If you want to connect with me in other ways outside of here, my website is up here, chefgirlnutrition.com. I have a free Facebook group, the Healthy Cooking Community with Chef Girl Nutrition. And then I also have an email list. I send out a weekly email with new recipes, some nutrition tips, all of that kind of good stuff. So again, you can email me directly for the recipe, or it will get posted to the library's website at the end of this program. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, put myself on the spotlight here, and give me one moment. I'm just going to reorganize myself for the demo. So I'll actually stop my video for a second, just so you don't need to watch me move around the kitchen. Okay, back in action. All right, so for our strawberry farro salad, I first just want to talk a little bit about farro. A lot of times when I use farro, it's the first time that somebody has heard of it. So farro is a whole grain, but it's a thicker grain, so it's thicker than rice, and it has a nice chewy texture to it. It has like a nutty, chewy texture to it. So it works really well for salads like this, or for adding into a salad that has greens as a base, or for using it as a base of a grain salad like we're doing today. Because the kernels are so much thicker, and this is what it looks like. Because the kernels are so much thicker, it can hold up to, having a lot of ingredients added to it. So it works really nicely for something like this. So that's why I'm using farro here, but you really can substitute farro for a different whole grain in this recipe. You could use quinoa, you could use rice, anything like that will really work okay. So this was a half a cup of dried farro that I cooked up. So farro cooks actually like pasta. You just, boil up some water and then add the dry farro in, and it boils for like 30-ish minutes or so until it's tender, and then you drain it off like pasta, and that's it. You do need to rinse farro, dry farro. You want to rinse it before cooking because it has a sort of like powdery coating on the outside of it. So when you rinse it, you kind of, you wash that powdery coating off. So you just want to rinse it and then cook it. So I cooked this just before it came out, just as we were starting here. And I did that intentionally because I wanted it to still be a little bit warm when we add the vinaigrette to it. And I will talk about that as we start making it. So let's make the vinaigrette, and then we'll look to the other ingredients. So this strawberry farro salad has a lemon honey balsamic vinaigrette that goes on it. So it's super delicious. And it really is, is pretty simple to make your own vinaigrettes, to make your own dressings, once you have a sort of basic ratio down. So when I'm making a vinaigrette, I actually like to do it in a measuring cup. because then I can just see the measurements without having to like measure everything separately and add it in. But it's also fun to make a vinaigrette in a jar, like a mason jar that's sealed, so that you can add all of the ingredients in and then just shake it up instead of having to whisk it. So that's kind of an easier way. And then it's it's sealed and you can just store it in the refrigerator that way. So I use extra virgin olive oil in most of my vinaigrettes because that's going to have the strongest flavor. So I'm using a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. So get down at eye level to measure that. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. So again, I can just, look and see when I've added 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. But before we do that, we actually need the zest of the lemon for the salad. So just like a tip when reading any recipes, if a recipe calls for the zest and the juice of a lemon, a lime, an orange, whatever citrus it is, make sure you zest before you cut it in half to get the juice, because once it's cut in half, it's going to be a lot harder to zest 2 halves of a lemon versus zesting it whole. So we're going to zest the lemon first and just set it aside into a container here. So I use a microplane to zest. You can also use like any other sort of flat grater, but I love to use a microplane for this. Microplanes are nice because they actually kind of collect the zest in the microplane itself. So I actually do it like this and just collect that zest right in the microplane. And so whenever you're zesting, you want to get just at the surface. And once you start seeing that white, you want to stop, because if you go any farther past that white, it's going to start to get bitter. So we're going to zest the whole lemon. This is going to give us a really nice, bright, summery flavor. You could also use orange here. Orange works really nice as well. So substituting orange zest and orange juice for the lemon juice and the lemon zest. We want like a teaspoon total of zest. So that'll be the zest from about 1 small lemon. But it's also okay if you have a little bit extra or a little bit less, because lemons, of course, come in different sizes, right? So we want about a teaspoon total. So you see, you get all the nice zest collected in the microplane there. So I'm just adding it to a container for adding to the salad once we are ready. But now I can cut my lemon. So I'm going to cut the lemon in half, and we're going to add the juice of half of this lemon to the vinaigrette. So I like to use any sort of lemon juicing tool. I love these kinds because you don't worry about any seeds or anything getting in, and it's just so easy to squeeze it in there. So we're going to just juice half the lemon in there. It's about a tablespoon. Again, because the size of lemons can differ. So you want about a tablespoon of lemon juice in here, and that's about the juice of half of a small lemon. Okay, so we have a vinaigrette is a basic ratio of oil to acid, right? So we have our extra virgin olive oil, and then we have acid from both the balsamic vinegar and the lemon juice. So that's good for that. We're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there. You want to add a good amount of salt to a homemade vinaigrette. Salt just acts in cooking in general to, bring out flavors, make flavors even stronger. So we add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt there, a little pinch of black pepper. I'm going to add half a tablespoon, got a Dijon mustard explosion, half a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Oh boy. And so Dijon mustard, clearly I'm in need of a new Dijon mustard. So Dijon mustard acts as an emulsifier. So that's having an emulsifier in there is the difference of having having just oil and vinegar, right, that kind of stays separated, versus having a, well emulsified vinaigrette that stays together as more of a dressing. So Dijon mustard is my favorite emulsifying ingredient to use. Another example is like a classic Caesar dressing that uses egg yolk as an emulsifier. So that's what helps to bring all these ingredients together. And then we're adding half a tablespoon of honey. And you could also use maple syrup here if you prefer, or if that's what you have on hand. So that's all of the ingredients for our vinaigrette. So I just whisk everything together with a fork. And you will probably have leftover vinaigrette after making this salad. It's not a bad thing. It's delicious on any other salad. I know for me, if I'm much more likely to eat, and not to say that you need to eat salad, but I'm much more likely to put together a salad, whether it just be a side salad for dinner or, a salad for lunch, if I know that I have a delicious dressing to enjoy it with. So this is one of my, top things in talking about meal planning and meal prep. One of my favorite things and what I recommend often to include in your weekly meal prep is to make one vinaigrette. Make, a big batch of vinaigrette that you can use throughout the week to enjoy on salad. So again, it's more enticing for you to have like a side salad with dinner and get some extra veggies in that way. Or maybe you just like to have it as like a dip for vegetables and dip some baby carrots or something in here. So having something like this on hand for the week is really nice. So not a bad thing to have some of this left over. It's a delicious dressing you can use it as a marinade too. It would be delicious to marinate like chicken breast. So that's so you can see that it's nice and emulsified. Of course, it will separate when it sits, but having the emulsifier in there helps it to incorporate together every time you go to mix it. All right. So we bring our Faro back. And so the reason why I wanted it to still be a little bit warm when I was making this is with any grain, if it's a little bit warm, it will absorb the flavors better. So when you're adding any sort of, oil, vinegar, like any sort of dressing to a grain salad, the grain will absorb the flavors better if it's still a little bit warm. So when you're making this recipe, you make the Faro and then set it into a bowl to cool a bit while you sort of prep all of the other ingredients. And then when you're ready for it, it won't be totally cold, but it'll be, cooled enough, but warm enough that it'll absorb the flavors of the vinaigrette better. So I'm going to start with just half of this. Okay, so this makes about a half a cup of vinaigrette. So I'm going to start with just half of it. Okay. And then after we add all of the other ingredients, you'll be able to taste and add more vinaigrette if you feel like it needs it. Or again, just kind of save the extra vinaigrette, and maybe you want to add more to the Faro salad when you're ready to eat it, to kind of like wake it up. And I just want to point out too that I'm using a fork to mix this. I like to use a fork when I'm, working with any sort of grain, because it helps to keep the kernels separated, so that, they don't start sticking together from the starch. So that's it. So just coated the Faro with half of that vinaigrette, and then we're ready to add in all of our other ingredients. And that's it. It just gets assembled, in one bowl like this. So I have one scallion that is thinly sliced going in. You could also use red onion, would be really nice in here instead of a scallion, but that onion, it just, the scallion or red onion, it just gives it a little bit of like a zing. It's a nice balance of flavor with the sweetness from the strawberries that we're going to add. So we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of chopped up strawberries. Okay, so I have them chopped in just like bite-sized pieces. I like to have, I don't like to have giant pieces of strawberry in this because the Faro is, small. Like you don't want to take a big bite of something where it's like awkward because the strawberry is like too big and you can't like fit the whole bite in your mouth. So I like to make the strawberries nice little bite-sized pieces. So we want about 3/4 of a cup of strawberries in there. Then we are going to add 1/2 a cup of chopped roasted pecans. Okay, that's all my pecans here. And you could definitely substitute a different nut or seed for pecans. Pistachios would be really, really nice with this. You could even use seeds like pumpkin seeds if you wanted to, if there's a nut allergy. But I do recommend using roasted nuts or seeds because roasting them gives them a different kind of nutty flavor. But it like intensifies the flavor of them. So even if you only have raw nuts or seeds at home, you can easily roast them yourself. They roast at a low temperature, like 300 degrees, just for like 8-ish minutes or so, just until you start to smell them. They should get nice and aromatic, and that's when you know that they're done and not burnt. So nice and quick to roast them yourself. So we have the Faro with 1/2 the vinaigrette, 1 scallion thinly sliced, 3/4 cup of bite-sized chopped up strawberries, 1/2 a cup of the roasted chopped up pecans. We're gonna add about a cup of fresh arugula. It's like 2 handfuls. It's like hard to measure cups of greens because they're so voluminous. So it's like, is it tightly packed? Is it loosely packed? It's about a cup. It's kind of just like 2 big handfuls of arugula. Again, kind of to your preference, how much green, how much greens you want in there. And I like the bite of arugula. Arugula is a little bit peppery compared to something like spinach that is a more mild flavor, but you could definitely substitute the arugula for a different green. So using baby spinach, using baby kale, Swiss chard, a little, you'd have to chop up the Swiss chard a bit, but you can definitely play around with the greens here and use what you like, use what's in season. And then we are adding our fresh herbs. So fresh herbs are in season in the summer. And I think fresh herbs are highly underused. And especially when talking about, how can we make healthy cooking taste delicious, right? How can we intensify the flavor of the food that we're eating? Fresh herbs, dried herbs too, spices, like all of these things are highly underused and can make a huge difference in the flavor. So I love using fresh herbs with fresh fruit. I think it's a really nice pairing. So it's a great way to jazz up even like the most simple fruit salad, right? Maybe you just have a fruit salad out at a barbecue or something. Adding some fresh basil or fresh mint to a fruit salad is a really delicious, kind of like unexpected touch. And again, just kind of changes it up a little bit. So, it's something different than eating just fruit. So on that note, we're adding fresh mint and fresh basil into this salad. So we're going to use about 2 tablespoons of each, fresh basil and fresh mint. You can use one or the other. If you're not a fan of mint or basil, you can omit one. But mint and basil are like the two that go the best with sweet flavors, right? So if you're going to add them into any sort of like fruit-based dish, mint and basil are the way to go. So I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of fresh mint in there. And I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of fresh basil. And if you notice, I waited to cut up the fresh herbs until we're ready to use them because they're delicate, and especially something like basil is super delicate. So once it's cut up, it starts to lose its integrity a little bit. It starts to get a little bit browned, a little bit like, wilty looking. So I always recommend waiting to add fresh herbs until you're like ready to go. So even, you know, if you're making the salad, you could definitely make a lot of this ahead of time, but I would wait to like fully assemble it all until you're ready to serve it, so that everything, you know, the strawberries don't get too mushy, the fresh herbs don't lose their, you know, their texture. So just kind of waiting until you're ready to go to fully assemble the dish. Okay. So there's my fresh basil going in. And our final ingredient to add in here is that lemon zest. So we're just going to add the lemon zest as like a last touch of like bright flavor. Again, just making it feel extra summery. And we're basically just gently folding all of this together. And that's the whole salad. So it comes together with just a few ingredients. You know, as I've been saying, going through it, it's definitely, you know, kind of customizable. You could change out the fruit. You know, different kinds of fruits will work well in this. It doesn't have to be strawberries. Strawberries, you know, on the topic of seasonal cooking, like I said, strawberries are in their prime season in June. So that's why we're using them today. But cherries would be good in here. Apricots, like any sort of stone fruit would be nice in here. Different kinds of berries. You could put blueberries in here. And again, just kind of a way to showcase a different, less typical way to enjoy these kinds of fruits. You know, so this is a beautiful salad. You get your whole grain in here, you get your greens in here, your fruit, your healthy fats from the pecans. We have our fresh herbs, our lemon zest, so it's nice and packed with flavor with really simple ingredients, right? We have this nice flavorful vinaigrette that we use. So it's the perfect seasonal salad for summer. All right, so that's the whole salad. I know the color is not so good on the video, but that's the whole thing. So this salad will keep well for, it'll keep well for like 2 or 3 days, but it really is best eaten within within 1 to 2 days of making it. Like I said, because like the strawberries will start to get a little bit softened, the greens will get a little bit wilty, so it is best eaten fresh, but it will definitely last for a couple of days. And that's it for the whole demo. So does anybody have any questions on the demo or on what we talked about with seasonal cooking? We have some time for questions if there are any. And I'm going to drop my email in the chat here, just for anyone, again, who's on here. If you want to get the recipe, you can email me directly. Okay. All right, so if there are no questions, then that is it for our program this evening on using seasonal foods to support your health. I encourage you, like I said, to, when you're going grocery shopping, this coming weekend, if you're meal planning for the week ahead, try to start thinking about, incorporating those seasonal ingredients into your meal plan. Try to get out to some local farmers markets if there are any near you. And
Jen, I just wanted to say that it looks delicious, and I'm definitely going to be making that.
Yay!
And we do have a farmers market in Long Beach.
Yeah.
I think it's twice a week, so we could get some nice ingredients. And I just wanted to thank you so much for that delicious meal.
Yeah. And this, to that point of it being a meal, it's definitely easy to add any sort of protein to this. If you wanted to have it as like a full, a full balanced meal, you could add some grilled chicken, have it with some fish, whatever your protein of preference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then it'll be a nice full meal.
Okay, so you'll be posting the recipe, and we just want to thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you all who are here with us live. Hope you learned something valuable.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a great night. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thank you.